The story begins with our hero, Basara, having a meal with his father. His father comments that he remembers when Basara was 10 years old and said that he really wanted a younger sister. Then he makes a big announcement. Soon Basara will have foster sisters. This takes Basara by surprise, as the two of them have always lived alone. And now, he suddenly finds out that his father is getting married again. Shortly afterwards, Basara enters the bathroom, without noticing the sign on the door that says, "Door broken." He opens it and finds a girl in the middle of the bath. She's about to scream, but he covers her mouth and tries to explain himself. Even so, she ends up hitting him with a blow. Before the confusion escalates, they are interrupted by Basara's father, who appears with another girl. It is at this point that our protagonist discovers that these two girls are what his father calls his adopted sisters. They introduce themselves as the young Maria Narus and the red-haired Mio Narus. The father explains that their mother is currently abroad, so now they have to take care of them. Later, we see everyone moving into a new house. The next day, Basara is woken up by his half-sister Mio in a rather special way. She notices that there's a computer game on his bed. When he tries to explain that he doesn't play that, he trips and falls on top of her, which makes her furious and makes her think he's a pervert. When Mio leaves the room, the protagonist remembers his father's explanation. They need to support the girls because they have been attacked in the past. Because of the trauma, Maria doesn't even go to school and can't be left alone, as her mother is absent. Basara then decides to take on the responsibility of living with them. When Basara enters the room, he finds Maria eating breakfast. She is wearing an extremely suspicious apron and starts teasing him about the games he plays. Just then, Mio enters the room with her father, and the two of them interpret the situation in the worst possible way. After the change, the father takes a family photo, and Basara realizes that those two girls are now part of his family. Later, our protagonist goes out shopping with Mio. When he steps away for a moment to pick up the bikes, some guys start harassing her. Basara goes back to protect her, confronts the aggressors, and then rides off with her on his bike. On the way, Mio apologizes sincerely to him. Before continuing their journey home, they stop at a viewpoint to admire the cityscape. Basara suggests that they return there at night to see the illuminated view, but notices that Mio still looks sad. He comforts her and says that now that they are a family, they should support each other. Mio gets the message, calls him Big Brother, and asks him to forget what happened in the bathroom and bedroom. But Basara refuses, probably out of pride or shame. When they return home, they are surprised by unexpected news. Their father is also leaving. He says he's going to pursue a freelance career in Dubai, leaving Basara alone to look after the sisters. They watch him go with serious expressions. The girls remain silent as Basara enters the room and suggests that they order some food. Mio eventually tells him to leave the house. That's when Maria uses magic to reveal that they are demons, and that Mio is the daughter of the Demon King. Maria also explains the existence of gods and heroes, revealing that the house is now their base. Mio tries to cast a spell to expel Basara, just as they did with his father. She even claims that their mother never existed. During the activation of the magical barrier, Basara pretends to be controlled, but surprises them by dodging their attacks and revealing that he too is a hero. However, instead of defeating Mio with his magic sword, he decides it's not worth spending time or money on. He spares her and simply asks her to leave his house. After the confrontation, Basara feels a strong pain in his arm and remembers a time when he seemed to have run away from the village of heroes as a child. He tries to calm down, realizing that he no longer has the same abilities as before. Although the reason is still a little unclear, he calls his father to clarify the situation and admits that he pretended to be bewitched just to get the girls home. The father then explains that Mio is the daughter of the Demon King Wilbert. Wilbert was a pacifist demon king, but he had many enemies who wanted to take his throne. To protect Mio, Wilbert sent her to the human world. A year later, he died, and now his enemies are looking for Mio before she fully develops her powers, with the aim of destroying her and preventing her from inheriting her father's power. Meanwhile, Mio and Maria are thinking about finding a new home and a new base of operations, when several demons appear out of nowhere and attack them. After listening to his father's explanation, Basara receives a magical message asking him to find them. When one of the demons pushes Mio, Basara appears and in epic fashion, he leaps into the air on his motorcycle, rescues Mio mid-flight and defeats the demons with his sacred sword. After the battle, he tells them both to go home. When Mio asks why he did it, Basara replies that he wants his family back and shows her a family photo that his father had given him, reinforcing his desire to protect those who are now part of his life. While Mio is bathing at home, Basara talks to Maria. He explains that he saved Mio because, like his father Jin, he always protects those close to him, even if they have left the village and now live as ordinary people. Since Mio took a shower too late, Maria takes the opportunity to put her things back in the house, while Basara goes to the bathroom to apologize to Mio. Meanwhile, Mio remembers the attack and realizes that she's not as powerful as she thought. When Basara enters the bathroom to see if she's okay, she refuses to accept help and asks why he cares, since she tricked him. Basara replies that he also hid the secret of being a hero, and that he understands what she did it was to protect him. He explains that, even though his parents' marriage no longer exists, they are now a family, and living together, protecting each other, is what makes them one. Maria appears and sees the two of them, relieved that they're alright. She asks about the technique Basara used to neutralize their magic. He replies that it was just luck, and leaves, without going into details. That night, Mio looks at a broken picture frame with a photo of her parents and remembers what happened to them. Maria enters the room, and Mio takes the opportunity to ask if they really want to live as a family. Maria notices the picture frame that Basara had given Mio. She advises the girl to accept his help, because he really does care, and they're not pretending to be kind. Mio agrees, and that's when Maria has an idea. Later, we see Mio and Basara inside a magical summoning circle, where they perform a master and servant contract ritual. Although, in practice, Maria the succubus says it's just a formality to maintain the connection between them, even from a distance. To complete the ritual, Basara would have to kiss Mio's hand, but at the moment of the ceremony, a mysterious mark appears on Basara's hand. Maria then explains that she has made a mistake. Now Mio is the one who has to kiss his hand. Mio starts to complain, but it takes too long. When the mark starts to disappear, she can't kiss the hand in time, and as a result, she is hit by a curse for disobedience. Mio falls to the ground, suffering from the magical effect. Maria explains that, as she is a spirit and used her own magic in the ritual, the curse applied makes Mio feel extreme pleasure as punishment. The only way to break the curse is for Mio to accept Basara as his master. To do so, he would have to dominate her until she surrendered. Reluctantly, Basara begins to administer a mild punishment until Mio, embarrassed and in tears, finally calls him brother, which was, ironically, what she had most wanted to do all along. Maria then reveals that she hid the existence of the curse on purpose, so that Basara wouldn't give up on the ritual. But she says that the contract was necessary so that they could locate Mio if something went wrong. She also warns that if Mio resists again, the curse will return in full force. Mio wakes up and drags Maria with her to make amends for the whole embarrassing situation. The next day, the three of them go to school. Maria uses a fake ID to pass herself off as an adult, since technically she's too small to be a student. When they arrive, Mio tells Basara to stay away from her, as if nothing had happened. The two of them agreed not to tell anyone that they were living together. However, Basara remembered the curse. If Mio had any thoughts of rebellion, it would be activated again, so they should be careful about that. In the classroom, they discover that they are in the same class, and teacher Sakazaki Namura introduces Basara, asking the class representative, Nanaka, to take him to see the school. Nanaka stands up and hugs him, and then Basara realizes that she is an old acquaintance called Yuki. Mio, seeing this, becomes jealous and, in an impulsive moment, ends up telling the whole class that they live together. This isolates Basara from the other boys in the class, who become jealous, and Mio remains uncomfortable with the whole situation. At lunchtime, a guy called Takegawa introduces himself to Basara, and the two go up to the roof to eat together. Takegawa explains that he arrived at the school a year ago, and everyone began to hate him when he became friends with the school princesses, Mio and Nonaka Yuki. After school, Mio is still angry, and Maria notices. She goes to pick her up, while Basara talks to Takagawa about Yuki. Suddenly, Yuki calls him to talk in private. In a cafe, they realize how much has changed in the 5 years since they last saw each other. Yuki asks Basara not to get too close to Mio. He then discovers that Yuki has been sent to monitor Mio. Meanwhile, Maria and Mio overhear the conversation, and this activates the curse again. The two believe that Yuki is spying on Mio. When she learns that Yuki is also a heroine of the village, Mio feels even more uncomfortable. Basara, on the other hand, explains to Yuki why he and his father Jin decided to protect Mio and Maria, even though he no longer has the strength he used to. But suddenly, a loud noise interrupts the conversation. Mio runs out of the cafe. Maria goes after her and admits that now she doesn't know how to face Basara. After knowing everything he's done for them, she encourages Mio to trust him, and has an idea that might help her do something special for him. Basara, for his part, reveals to Yuki that he still carries the weight of what happened 5 years ago. Yuki remembers that he saved her life, but he says that it's different with Mio because she's fighting for her life, and that's why he wants to protect her. Meanwhile, Maria convinces Mio to do something special for her husband in the bathroom. In the evening, Basara says goodbye to Yuki and asks her not to get involved with the demons, because he will take care of the problem. But Yuki activates her powers, summons her sword, and destroys a low-level demon that appears. She warns, Mio's power will attract more demons, and if they start hurting humans, she will do whatever it takes to protect Mio. Later that night, Basara explains to Mio and Maria what has happened to Yuki, and the two ask him to strengthen the bond between them, since they are now going to fight together. He agrees, and the three of them go to the bathroom together. In the bathroom, Mio starts rubbing his back, but he asks her to behave because he's brought a cake to celebrate. However, as Basara enters the bathroom with the cake, he trips and some of it falls on Mio's arm. What happens next? The girls start licking each other's cake, and the mood goes from party to embarrassment session in the blink of an eye. Then our characters lose control, get up, start rubbing cake all over each other, and fight with each other for being such idiots. Then Basara wakes up in Maria's bed, and she explains that when he got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, he had a sleepwalking episode. In other words, the whole previous scene was just a dream. However, even though he was asleep, he ended up unconsciously putting his hand on her, taking advantage of the fact that Mio is sleeping in another room. Basara asks Maria for help. The next day, he goes to class exhausted, which makes Mio even more jealous. Takagawa shows up and tells Basara that the teacher has asked him to help Yuki with her summer homework, which increases Mio's jealousy even more and ends up activating the curse on the contract. Mio insists that Basara leave, but he realizes what is happening and refuses to go, which causes her to suffer the effects of the curse. He then takes her to the infirmary and talks to the school nurse, Chisato Hasegawa, who advises him to find out who his real allies and enemies are. While still in the infirmary, Basara receives a call from Takagawa, saying that everything has been sorted out. Even so, he tells Mio to call Maria, and she complains about that lazy little devil who's always sleeping. Outside, Basara talks to Maria on the phone while he fetches some water. Maria says she'll pick her up later, and then Takagawa appears and comments that Yuki has been visiting Mio recently, which surprises Basara since he hasn't seen her there. Suddenly, Basara notices the presence of several demons around him. He activates his sword to protect his friends, defeats the enemies, and runs to Mio's room. But when he arrives, she is no longer there. On the school terrace, Mio and Yuki argue about Basara. Mio says that he protects her because he considers her part of the family. This provokes Yuki, and a fight breaks out between the two. Yuki reveals that she has already saved many of her fellow members of the hero's village, and that this has weakened her. She also explains that if Basara summons his sword, she will end up suffering pain as a result. Basara appears and tries to calm the situation between the two, but they are interrupted by the arrival of a masked demon. The enemy mocks Basara, revealing that he has been banished from the clan of heroes and is now protecting the heiress of the Demon King. He explains that he fights Maria every night to prevent the demons from becoming a threat to humanity. Mio is shocked by the whole thing. Basara tries to attack the demon, but is easily overpowered. At this point, he tells Mio to give up her powers. But then a second demon appears behind her and tries to attack her. Basara throws himself in front of her to protect her and ends up seriously wounded in the back. The masked demon comments in surprise that he hadn't expected to see Basara so vulnerable. Annoyed, Yuki defeats the shadow demon that had wounded Basara. Before disappearing, the shadow demon teases Mio, telling her to think about whether it's really worth keeping things the way they are. After that, Maria manages to stabilize Basara at home, but Mio remains pensive, disturbed by everything she's heard from the masked enemy. Unable to get those words out of her head, she decides to go to sleep, leaving Maria to look after Basara alone. Basara suddenly wakes up and is surprised at how quickly he has recovered. He explains that he received intensive training from a very young age. As he was raised as a hero, he remembers how he was brought up by the village of heroes and how the elders believed that he had a promising future because of his powers. But then something remarkable happened. During an incident, one of the heroes released the sacred demon sword, ended up possessed by a demon and wreaked havoc on the village. To protect Yuki and contain the chaos, Basara had to activate his destructive power, reducing everything around him to ashes. Back in the present, Basara asks about Mio, and Maria replies that she has a fever and is resting in her room. However, when they go to check, they discover that she has disappeared. Maria, worried, asks Basara to find her using his contacts. Meanwhile, Mio is in a forest and ends up meeting a mysterious demon. The two begin to fight, but Mio soon realizes that she is at a disadvantage. She ends up surrendering, and the enemy puts demonic handcuffs on her, opening a portal to the demonic world. At that moment, Yuki appears and engages in combat with the demon, leading to an intense battle. Just as the enemy is about to strike a fatal blow, Basara appears with his sword, stopping the attack at the last moment. He then demonstrates a power called Dimensional Expulsion or Expulsion Shift, which can neutralize any attack and redirect its energy to Dimension 0, making those around him start to see him as a possible demon. Because of this, they try to capture him, believing him to be a threat. Despite their mistrust, Basara takes control of the situation. With his sword, he destroys the enemy's attack and starts a direct fight against the mysterious demon. When they realize that they won't be able to defeat him alone, Maria appears to help, and together they manage to defeat him. But just then, another demon from the shadows appears and stabs Basara with a sword, causing him to fall seriously wounded. Mio, witnessing the scene, goes into shock and unleashes all her demonic power, destroying the enemy and everything around her in an outburst of uncontrolled fury. Even wounded, Basara approaches her. Mio, afraid of hurting him, warns him that he can't control his powers, but he refuses to back down. He tells her that she is his sister, and that, even if he has to go against the whole world, he will protect her. Touched by his words, Mio accepts his support and activates the Exile Shift technique, taking control of his uncontrolled power and teleporting them both to Dimension 0, where the energy released can no longer cause destruction. Sometime later, Yuki goes to Basara's house to deliver some medicine from the hero's village, while he is still recovering from the exertion of the last battle. As she leaves, she notices that Basara now seems to have more control over his powers and is happy about it. A week passes, the heroes return to school, and Mio justifies her absence by saying that she had the summer flu. The routine seems to have returned to normal, but all is not calm. During class, Basara goes up to the school terrace to confront Takagawa. There, he discovers that Takagawa was actually the mysterious demon he had fought. Instead of starting a new battle, Basara proposes a truce, since the enemies have failed to provoke Mio to the point where she loses control and unleashes her powers. Takagawa accepts the deal, and they both pretend that nothing has happened. However, before they say goodbye, Takagawa reveals an important piece of information. Zolja was the real culprit behind the attack on Mio's house and the death of her parents. Later, the now disguised Takagawa walks past Maria without arousing suspicion. Mio approaches Basara to thank him for saving her. She even tries to kiss him as a token of gratitude, but Yuki appears just in time and hands Mio a snack. She says that she also wanted to have lunch with Basara, but she didn't bring any food for herself. Then Maria arrives with more lunchboxes for everyone. She says that, because of his curse, Basara must feed the girls. He refuses, but Maria provokes him further by telling Yuki that he is her master. This leads to an argument between the three, each wanting to claim Basara in some way, which leaves him completely unresponsive. Meanwhile, Jin Taoju, Basara's father, is in a forest talking on the phone to a man who is spying on the youngsters. The man reveals that he knows about Basara's potential, as he is Jin's son with another woman. After the call, Jin reflects and believes that his son is trying to escape the destiny that has been set for him. Back at the house, Basara is woken up by Maria, who begins to tease him playfully. He tries to gently push her away, but already realizes that another trap is afoot. Soon after, he enters the bathroom and bumps into Mio. Startled, she slips and falls right on top of him, which leads to a typical mess. Mio is annoyed by the situation, but Basara assures her that he would never do anything disrespectful. Deep down, he knows that Maria has probably set him up once again. However, Mio remembers that it wasn't the first time an embarrassing situation like that had happened. As punishment, she electrocutes Basara using her own powers. Afterwards, he tries to relax the pain by taking a bath. But, to his surprise, Yuki enters the bathroom straight away. She explains that Maria let her in and asked her to bathe Basara, as she used to when they were children. He refuses, but Yuki is hurt, saying that he bathes other girls, but not her. She threatens to take bolder action if he continues to refuse, and Basara eventually gives in, albeit against his will. Just then, Mio enters the bathroom with the intention of apologizing to her half-brother. However, she notices a female uniform there and, suspicious, decides to check what's going on. As she enters, she sees Basara and Yuki in the shower together. Jealousy overtakes Mio, which ends up activating the curse on the contract. Maria, who notices the magical reaction, appears with a camera and starts recording the scene. Outraged by the situation, Basara locks Maria in the shower stall, takes Mio outside and leaves Yuki waiting alone in the living room. Later, Basara invites Takagawa to join him for dinner. During the meal, he thanks Takagawa for completing his schoolwork a few days earlier in his place. As they talk, Takagawa begins to explain to his new ally the nature of the curse and the master and servant contract that exists between Basara and Mio. He also reminds them that morning, Basara had to do something specific to contain the effects of Mio's curse, something he clearly doesn't want to relive. Takagawa warns that if Mio falls into the hands of her enemies, because of the properties of the magic contract, she could end up being forced to act against Basara. However, he refuses to go into any more detail, saying that the subject is too unpleasant. Before leaving, Takagawa also mentions that Jin Taoju, Basara's father, is an extremely well-known figure in the demonic underworld, and that this could lead to even more complications in the future. The enemies believe that Mio has awakened the power of the former Demon King, so they may send even more reinforcements to watch her closely. This makes everything more complicated, as the presence of stronger demons will make life difficult for everyone, and could hinder the group's unity in the future. During the conversation between Basara and Takagawa, Nurse Hasegawa joins them. She mentions that she knew Basara's father, Jin, and that she really liked his photos. In fact, in the restaurant where they were, there was an old photo of Jin next to a friend of the boss of the place. After toasting and finishing their meal, the group split up. Takagawa leaves to sort out some business, while Basara stays a little longer with Hasegawa. She asks what they were talking about earlier, and Basara replies in a relaxed manner that it was about a game. But inside, he's tense. He thinks seriously about the possibility of losing Mio to his enemies. The weight of responsibility consumes him. Realizing this, Hasegawa hugs him. She understands the burden he carries looking after two sisters who live in constant danger. Before saying goodbye, she gives him a special blessing, a kind of incantation unique to the Village of Heroes, wishing him strength and protection. Later the same day, Takagawa, now wearing his demonic mask, meets the demon Varga, another agent who is also monitoring Mio. Varga quickly disappears, saying he's going to get even closer to his target. Shortly afterwards, Zest, Marco's right-hand woman, appears. She tells Takagawa that she has received direct orders from His Majesty, which further increases the tension about what is to come. Meanwhile, at home, Basara talks to Maria about the effects of the curse, while Mio takes a bath. he realizes that Maria believes that if Mio falls into the hands of her enemies, he will be the only person capable of saving her, thanks to the bond of the contract. So the two decide to continue with the pact in order to grow stronger together. As usual, Maria changes the tone of the conversation and suggests that Basara practice his seduction skills by playing her games of course, with the excuse that it might help him deal better with Mio and Yuki in the future. Just then, Mio enters the room, catches the scene, and immediately feels jealous. In retaliation, she uses her powers to punish Maria, and once again the house becomes a small battlefield. Meanwhile, outside, a demon appears on the street and prepares to attack an innocent woman, but it is intercepted in time by Kurumi, Yuki's younger sister, who appears accompanied by other warriors from the hero's village. The group quickly defeats the demon. After the battle, Kurumi meets up with another hero called Shiba. There, she reveals the new plan. Mio Narus is now officially the target to be eliminated. The next day, at school, some boys try to provoke Basara, but are stopped by a teacher sent by Yuki to keep an eye on the situation. Then Yuki herself takes the initiative and asks Basara out on a date. What they don't realize is that 3 heroes are watching them from afar, spying on their every move, with the plan to defeat Mio as soon as the opportunity arises. During their date, Basara and Yuki visit a clothing store. There, he feels a strange presence, as if he's being watched, but decides to ignore it. Suddenly, Mio and Maria appear, pretending that they were just strolling by chance. In fact, they were following the couple on purpose, annoyed by their approach. Yuki notices Mio's jealousy and tries to deflect the tension by inviting her to help her choose clothes. The two go to the fitting rooms and try on various outfits. While looking in the mirror, Yuki realizes that what she really wanted to do was pick out clothes with an upcoming date with Basara in mind. Just then, Kurumi suddenly appears. She scolds Yuki for being distracted by frivolities and takes her away. Basara and the others try to contact Yuki, but she doesn't answer their calls. This worries Basara, who begins to think that it would be easier to protect her if he and Yuki also had a magical contract like the one he has with Mio. Suddenly, the surrounding space begins to distort. A new enemy appears, Valga, a subordinate demon. He attacks, but the boys manage to narrowly dodge him. The suspicion is that he has done something to Yuki, which leads Basara to react strongly. They try to fight him off, but his attacks don't have much effect. In the middle of the fight, one of the heroes, Lars, appears and freezes Valga with ice magic, eliminating the threat. Soon afterwards, the 3 spy heroes reveal themselves and openly declare that Mio is now considered a threat and must be eliminated. They also reveal that Yuki and Kurumi are sisters, and warn Basara that if he continues to interfere, he will be treated as an enemy. Even in the face of the threat, Basara doesn't hesitate. He firmly states that he will continue to protect Mio, whatever the cost. Before the fight begins, the hero called Shiba intervenes and destroys the magical barrier surrounding the place. He explains that in order for a serious fight to take place without putting innocent people at risk, it is necessary to use a reinforced dimensional field far away. He promises that he will soon let Basara know when the time is right for a fair fight, a 3-on-3 fight in which Yuki will also take part. That night, Basara talks to his father, Jin Taoju, who comments that the village elders have gone too far in freeing Shiba from prison. Even though he knows that Basara doesn't intend to take an active part in the conflict against the heroes, Jin advises him, if he has to fight, let him defeat everyone including Yuki, since it was the village itself that banished him years ago. Motivated by this, Basara, Mio, and Maria decide to begin intense training that lasts all night. When they finish, Basara shares his strategy for confronting Yuki, making it clear that, above all, he needs to feel prepared and confident to protect the people he loves. Meanwhile, Kurumi scolds her sister Yuki for spending too much time with Mio, a demoness. She reminds her that they are both heroes and have a bigger mission to fulfill. They can't let their feelings get the better of them. Elsewhere, Takashi and Shiba discuss Basara's situation. They know that he will have to find a way to defeat them if he wants to protect Mio. Despite the long-standing friendship between Takashi and Shiba, Takashi still harbors resentment, as he remembers that his friend caused pain to many people in the village, which fuels his anger to this day. Later, back at the house, Maria comes out of the bath, wrapped only in a towel, and brings Basara a glass of hot milk. The two of them chat in a relaxed way, and she comments that he should be more trusting of Mio to strengthen the bond between them and make the magic contract even more effective. But Basara insists that his only intention is to protect her, and that trust between the two of them should come naturally through care and coexistence. Even so, Maria decides to provoke him. She sits on his lap and says that this physical contact can help him become more powerful, especially if he is still inexperienced as a master. Mio, who was in the bathroom and heard the whole conversation, is furious when she notices the scene. However, inside, she admits to herself that she would also like to have this kind of closeness with Basara, even if, deep down, it was only to become stronger alongside him. After spending some time together to strengthen the trust between them, Mio begins to glow slightly on her neck, a sign that the level of the magic contract has risen. Maria explains that this means that Mio's trust in Basara has deepened, and with it, his power has also increased. Mio feels more confident than ever. Now she believes they can win the next battle. The next day, back at school, Mio has lunch with her friends and Basara's classmates. She comments on the upcoming fight, curious about what will happen. Without knowing many details, Basara asks them to let him know as soon as they hear anything, but gives a firm warning. If the heroes try to hurt Mio, he will have no choice but to defeat them, including Yuki, if necessary. Before leaving, he reinforces his message. He tells his colleague that if he gets in the way, he'll have to face him too. Later, while Basara is thinking about meeting Mio and Maria to discuss strategy, Yuki sneaks up on him and takes him into a dark room. There, she tries to convince him not to take part in the upcoming battle, but Basara refuses. He is determined to protect those on his side, regardless of the price. Yuki pretends to be calm and, before leaving, reveals the location of the fight. Basara stops her from leaving immediately and hands her the keys to his house. He expresses his desire for her to continue visiting him, as she did when they lived together in the village. Yuki tries to say that this may no longer be possible after the battle, but Basara is direct. He doesn't want this to be the end. His words touch her deeply, and she leaves saddened. When night falls, everyone gathers at the place set for the battle. Basara, Mio, Maria, and the other heroes position themselves. The fight is about to begin. Takashi is the first to act, summoning his sacred familiar, the White Tiger, and creating a powerful barrier around the royal city, preventing Shiba from interfering. At first glance, it seems that Basara is going to fight Yuki, but it soon becomes clear that his real opponent is Kirimi. While Takashi turns against Mio and Maria, outside, in the real world, Zest watches the battle from afar, attentive to every move. Meanwhile, Mio and Maria try to buy time by fleeing through an abandoned store, waiting for Basara to arrive. Takashi realizes their plan and understands that they are trying to take him to the west, where the White Tiger's reach will be less effective. Even so, Takashi manages to corner Maria, Mio, and her summoned dragon, Veilfar, weakening their defenses. On the other side of the battlefield, Basara continues to confront Kirimi. He hesitates to hurt her, trying to find a way to beat her without really hurting her. When the going gets tough, Basara activates his banished transformation, a state of extreme power, and manages to defeat Kirimi. But before she falls, he holds her and prevents her from getting hurt. But the relief is short-lived. Yuki appears by surprise and attacks him with her sword. She then uses magic incense to lull him to sleep. With Basara unconscious, Yuki hands his body over to her sister and leaves to join the rest of the battle. Meanwhile, Mio manages to trap Takashi in a water trap, trying to suffocate him, but he fights back using the White Tiger, deflecting all the water and escaping unharmed. Confident of victory, Takashi goes on the attack, certain that he has eliminated Mio and Maria. However, with Shiba's help, he realizes that he has been tricked. The girls have managed to escape. When Takashi finds them again and prepares to deliver the final blow, Yuki intervenes. She stops the attack and turns on Takashi, declaring that she will protect those that Basara protects. For her, this isn't a betrayal of the village, it's loyalty to what she believes is right. As the battle continues, Maria encourages Mio to search for Basara and help in any way she can, while she herself remains by Yuki's side, facing Takashi. The fighting is intense and the hero's side is beginning to gain the upper hand. On the other side, Kirimi observes Basara lying unconscious and begins to realize that he too bears the emotional scars of the events of 5 years ago. Just then, Mio approaches him and says he doesn't want to fight anymore, not with them. not like that. Despite Kirami's distrust, Mio insists on trying to wake him up. She believes that, even unconscious, Basara can react to her presence. Then, gently, she hugs him and whispers her request that he protect Yuki and Maria, just as he always has. The bond between the two manifests itself strongly, and to Kirami's surprise, Basara awakens. Meanwhile, the fight between Takashi and the girls continues. He gains ground and prepares to launch a devastating blow against Yuki until Basara intervenes with his sword. Now using a new, more refined and unpredictable style of combat, he manages to dodge Takashi's attacks and forces him to push the Byakko White Tiger to the limit. Shiba, watching from a distance, realizes that Basara is forcing Takashi to unleash the spirit's full defensive mode, which summons the Byakko's physical form, an immense magical beast in the shape of a tiger. Basara warns the girls, half the battlefield is now within the White Tiger's area, and if the barrier is broken, the creature could be released into the real world. Knowing this, Mio and Yuki go all out to contain Byakko's power. With a joint effort, they manage to defeat the spirit creature and avert disaster. After the battle, the group gathers around Takashi, who begins to accuse Basara for everything that has happened. He says that Basara deserves to suffer, just as his friends have suffered in the past. Mio, irritated by his hostility, knocks him out with a punch, but Basara stops her from continuing. Instead of fighting back, he calmly says that he will defeat Takashi every time he tries to hurt Mio, not as an enemy, but as someone who has made a firm decision to protect those he loves, even if it means facing up to former allies. Just then, Shiba appears. With the barrier already destroyed and the White Tiger defeated, he declares that the mission is officially aborted. He orders Kirami and Yuki to return with him to the village. Basara tries to intervene, but Shiba releases an intense magical pressure, forcing the girls to obey to prevent him from causing any more trouble or attacking anyone. Yuki leaves without saying anything, and Basara's silence the next day draws the attention of even Mio's friends, who notice his change in behavior. Walking home, Basara reflects. It's been 10 days since he met Yuki. Mio, noticing the mood, tries to get closer, showing that she is also worried about him. When they get home, they are surprised by an unexpected visitor. Yuki is back. She explains that the village has decided to pretend that nothing has happened and has revoked the order to eliminate Mio, thanks to a phone call from Jin, Basara's father. Curious about what kind of deal Jin made to achieve this, Basara decides to leave the details aside for the time being. He approaches Yuki and hugs her, a gesture she returns with an unexpected kiss, but the moment is quickly interrupted by Mio, who enters the room and starts arguing with Yuki, visibly jealous. To make matters worse, Maria appears smiling and reveals that she was the one who let Yuki in. She thought that both Basara and Mio were missing Yuki, and decided to give them a helping hand. Yuki surprises everyone by revealing that the village elders have allowed her to live with Basara, Mio and Maria, all under the pretext of keeping an eye on the Demon King's heiress. The revelation makes the atmosphere awkward, but is received without direct confrontation. Trying to relax, Maria takes the opportunity to show a secret video she recorded in the past. In the video, Basara appears calming the effects of Mio's curse in a very intimate situation. The content leaves Basara completely embarrassed, while Yuki watches with interest. Seized by a sudden idea, Yuki starts to take off her blouse and says that she wants to repeat the same curse healing process. Maria, of course, is excited by the possibility, but Mio, embarrassed and annoyed, quickly intervenes and stops her friend from going ahead with the idea. Over dinner, the four discuss the master and servant contract, which allows those involved to share locations, strengthen their magical bonds, and even increase their powers together. Faced with the benefits, Yuki agrees to make the same contract with Basara, and schedules the ritual for the following night. The next day, at school, the girls become increasingly close to Basara, making him uncomfortable in the midst of the competitive atmosphere. Meanwhile, Maria receives a mysterious phone call that makes her run out and make an appointment behind the school building. At swimming lessons, Yuki comments excitedly about the contract she's going to sign with Basara that evening. It's clear that she's excited, both about the magical empowerment and about getting even closer to him. Meanwhile, in the men's locker room, Takegawa talks to Basara about an old scar. and the two briefly share memories of the past. But something bothers Basara. He notices Maria running around the courtyard, apparently distressed. Suspicious, he questions Takegawa about his involvement in this, and then goes after Maria. He finds her in a classroom, where she tries to disguise herself, saying that she was just checking school security as a precaution in case Mio became a target. The two end up taking a walk around the school, and, on the way, they enter the girls' bathroom, something Maria clearly planned. Suddenly, Maria feels a strange energy and runs out. Basara follows her to the terrace, and there they find two boys playing. The situation, for the moment, doesn't seem threatening. Back at the pool, Mio and Yuki compete against each other during swimming lessons. The competition between the two is fierce and, in the end, ends in a draw. The two pretend that everything is fine, but it's obvious that neither wants to fall behind the other. Later, Maria continues her security rounds with Basara and takes him to the women's changing room. There, as usual, she begins to tease him. When they hear voices approaching, the two of them hastily hide inside Mio's locker. As the girls enter, Maria continues to tease Basara inside the locker, leaving him completely bewildered and not knowing what to do. After the girls leave, Basara opens the closet and pretends that everything is normal, saying that he's not feeling very well and that he's going to the infirmary alone. As soon as everyone leaves, Mio angrily opens the cupboard and takes the two of them out, visibly annoyed. She scolds them for yet another absurd situation caused by Maria. But, as always happens, the curse of the contract is activated and Mio begins to feel ill. Maria, wasting no time, suggests that they evolve the bond one more time to alleviate the symptoms. Mio, although embarrassed, agrees. As requested, Basara bathes first as part of the ritual, while Maria guides everything with her classic enthusiasm. And so, once again, the limits of the master and servant contract are pushed to the extreme, all in the name of magical empowerment. Later, in the classroom, they realize that Maria is missing. Basara gets worried and asks Yuki to accompany Mio home while he sets off to find the succubus. He ends up finding Maria talking to Takegawa, which puts him on alert. He rushes over to her and finds her near the stairs. Maria, however, reassures Basara that she was just lost and had asked a man who, coincidentally, was an old acquaintance of Basara's for information. On the way home, Maria asks to hold Basara's hand, and he agrees. The two go hand in hand in a quieter moment between so many battles. Meanwhile, Leonhardt, the current Demon King, watches a video about Basara. He realizes that, although Mio has inherited the power of the old Demon King, humans still possess abilities capable of rivaling that strength. This piques the interest of Leonhardt, who decides to start his plan to achieve his own goals. As Lars Takegawa is watching the group, he believes that everything is under control, as he is considered a low-ranking demon. That night, the contract ritual between Basara and Yuki takes place. However, Yuki hesitates to kiss Basara's hand, fearful of reliving the embarrassing moments she saw between him and Mio. When the curse begins to manifest itself on her too, Basara manages to calm her down. The mood warms up, but Maria suggests that they all take a shower together, Mio and Yuki, as a way of further strengthening the bonds of the contract. Surprisingly, things go well and the results are positive. From above, Zest, one of the Demon King's subordinates, observes the scene and introduces herself to Basara as his future adversary. The next day, Mio and Yuki appear closer than ever during physical education class. During a game of tag, Takegawa hits Basara with the ball, causing an injury. He tries to praise Basara's skills as a way of diffusing the situation, but the comment upsets him and leads him to the infirmary. There, Professor Heisugawa tends to his wound and warns him not to push himself too hard. She also recommends that if he gets hurt again, he should go to her immediately and not remove the bandages without permission. Later, in the men's locker room, Sakaki, a classmate of Mio's, shows up to talk to Basara. She unexpectedly confesses her feelings and even tries to grab him. However, Yuki and Mio appear just in time and see the scene. Mio, overcome with jealousy, runs off. Basara tries to explain himself, but Yuki realizes that Mio's curse has been activated and must act quickly. She finds her on the school terrace, where Maria appears and uses her magic to put her to sleep. Just then, a mysterious voice whispers that Zalja will ease Mio's pain. Basara arrives shortly afterwards, only to discover that Maria is taking Mio away with the help of Jester, another demon. They manage to escape and Basara completely loses track of his adopted sister. Meanwhile, Mio begins to remember her dark past, especially the time when Zulja betrayed her parents, who were heroes. When she wakes up, she finds Maria by her side and believes that everything is fine. But Maria reveals the truth, and the two run away together. Later, Mio wakes up again, this time handcuffed, facing the demon Zulja. She tries to resist, but he uses a spell to immobilize her and prepares to abuse his power. That's when the voice of the current demon king, Leahart, intervenes and orders Zulja to step back, revealing that his interests go beyond simply using Mio's power. Zulja obeys and entrusts Maria with the task of looking after Mio, albeit in a manipulative way, forcing the succubus to act against her will. Meanwhile, Basara confronts Takegawa Lars and demands answers. Takegawa reveals that Maria used to work for Zulja, but decided to rebel and run away with Mio. However, Zulja killed Maria's mother and, in revenge, made her hand over her former master. Now, Zulja wants to turn Mio into his ultimate servant and is willing to kill her if necessary. Basara decides that he will not allow this and declares that he will face Zulja in a duel. Back at Zulja's fortress, Maria tells Mio that Basara won't be able to find her using the contract, as it has been deactivated. This means that, for the time being, she is completely trapped in Zulja's domain. Maria regretfully puts her to sleep once again. On the outskirts of Zulja's castle, Takegawa, using his identity as Lars, arrives and proposes a deal to Jester. He will hand over Basara in exchange for permission to see Mio. Jester, in turn, captures Basara and hands him over. Takegawa then reveals that Zulja was only summoned by the Demon King because of Basara's involvement with Mio, and that Leahart himself is aware of everything. Despite this, Jester has shown loyalty to Basara by not revealing certain information, protecting him from destruction. While all this is going on, Maria is emotionally devastated at having betrayed Mio and being forced to serve Zulja again. She remembers her mother's death and the weight she has been carrying ever since. Suddenly, Jester appears carrying an unconscious Basara and orders Maria to use her seduction to dominate his mind. When Basara wakes up, he finds himself chained up in Zulja's mansion. Maria begins to seduce him, trying to control his mind as ordered. However, Basara, though confused, reveals that he already knows the whole truth, that Maria's mother is being held prisoner and claims that she is not alone. He promises that everyone is ready to help her, but Maria, visibly shaken, insists that she cannot accept help. Using an artifact, she activates a magic key that releases a new, more powerful form, with the aim of baptizing Basara as a true servant. Meanwhile, Yuki walks alone through the forest, remembering the risky plan Basara had devised to save Mio, even if it put his life at risk. Back at the mansion, Basara struggles against Maria's charms. He almost succumbs, but manages to escape the illusion with willpower. With determination, he says that his desire is to save her, not to fight her. He draws his sword, but instead of attacking her, he sticks the blade into the ground, proving that he doesn't intend to hurt her. Maria, however, continues her attack, overwhelmed by pain and confusion. Just then, Yuki senses Basara's presence and sees Zulja's mansion magically appear before her eyes. Nearby, Zest observes everything and considers interfering, even though she knows it would put her loyalty in doubt. Yuki breaks in, attacks Jester, and finds the entrance to the mansion. Yuki then reveals that Basara's real plan was to be captured on purpose in order to break the magical barrier of the place from the inside out. With that, the way was opened. Yuki and Mio team up and confront Zest. During the confrontation, Zest tries to manipulate Mio's curse, but fails. Basara then realizes that the succubus is jealous of the close relationship between him and Mio. Maria surprises him with a powerful magical blow. Even though he is wounded, Basara remains standing, withstanding Maria's attacks. He hugs her tightly and tells her that she can leave everything to him, that it is now his responsibility to protect her. As chaos takes over the mansion, Yuki tries to finish off Jester, but Mio stops her. Just then, Zulja appears and paralyzes them both, using magic to capture Yuki. He also scolds Jester for letting Mio escape. Zulja tries to kill Basara. The others try to attack him, but Zulja activates a mind control that paralyzes Basara and begins to probe his true power. he realizes the immense potential the boy carries. Suddenly, we see a mysterious man approach Zolja's mansion. Meanwhile, Maria is alone in her room, remembering Basara's promise to save everyone. The memory rekindles her hope. Inside the mansion, Basara tries to break the mental control that Zolja exerts over him, even as the villain insults his father. Jin, Basara tries to fight back, but Zolja turns invisible, making it difficult to react. Nevertheless, by concentrating his energy, Basara manages to strike his enemy, albeit without causing any direct damage. The battle intensifies. Zolja dives even deeper into Basara's mind, creating sensual visions and illusions with all the girls trying to confuse him and break his resistance. Just then, the seal that binds Maria's mother begins to break. She realizes that something important is about to happen. Just as Basara is about to be completely overpowered, Maria comes up with an attack on Zolja. However, the villain stops her by showing her the cell where her mother is, visibly weakened and under absolute control. The sight deeply shakes the succubus. At the same time, Mio witnesses Maria's suffering and begins to lose control of her own powers. Remembering the moment she lost her parents, this emotional instability is enough for Zolja to try to manipulate her and absorb her demonic energy. She manages to drive away everyone around her, including Jester, with a wave of energy. However, Basara saves her in time. Zolja approaches Mio, willing to extract her powers with what little magic she still has. But when he touches her, his arm is instantly destroyed, and he is thrown through the air. He realizes, horrified, that Mio's power is not that of the old Demon King, it is a unique power, entirely hers. Mio prepares to kill him, her body enveloped in intense energy. But Basara stops her, asking her not to take her enemy's life. He reaffirms that he will protect her like a true brother, even against the world. Overcome by emotion and trust in Basara, Mio hesitates. Zolja takes advantage of this brief moment to flee, slipping through the shadows of the destroyed mansion. After the intense battle, Basara asks the girls not to go after Zolja. He knows it would be dangerous, and that the priority now is to ensure everyone's safety. Just then, Sheila, Maria's mother, appears. Basara then explains that she is safe thanks to the help of her allies, all part of a well-executed plan. Meanwhile, the villain Zolja tries to escape, but is intercepted by Takagawa. That's when the truth comes out. Takagawa had made a deal with the humans. In exchange for sneaking a doll into Zolja's castle to free Sheila, he won the right to personally finish off the villain. He also reveals that Mio's adoptive parents, who were murdered, were actually Takagawa's adoptive parents too, which makes it clear that the revenge is personal. After reuniting with Sheila, she tells them how she managed to escape from prison. The group realizes that Zolja's magical barrier has been completely destroyed due to a lack of energy. But just when they think the danger has passed, the entire castle begins to transform. The structure takes the form of the gigantic mouth of a colossal demon, whose goal is to devour the entire planet. Outside, Zolja reveals to Takagawa his ultimate plan, to unleash monsters so powerful that they can destroy the entire world, all so that no one can ever steal Mio from him. With time running out, Maria is given the mission of looking after Sheila, while Basara, Mio, Yuki and Zest set off towards the demon creature's weak point, with the aim of stopping it from wiping out everything. They entrust Zest with leading the mission. During the journey, Zest notices a change in the monster's structure. Nevertheless, they press on until they reach the creature's core. However, as they enter, the monster's immune system awakens and begins to attack them. To protect the others, Yuki decides to stay and hold off the attacks by herself. Jester, Basara and Mio go ahead and enter the forbidden chamber created by Zolja. There, Mio encounters a demon identical in appearance to Jester, as well as several clones, all hostile. Zest gives the order. They must eliminate the clones if they want to continue. With a joint effort, they manage to defeat them one by one. Finally, when they reach the monster's real core, they discover that the internal system is preventing any attempt at destruction. Zest makes a risky decision and says she will sacrifice herself to distract the creature. She reveals that the clones exist because Zolja rejected her because she still had a heart. Zest's pain is evident, but she is willing to give her all to help. Mio begs her not to do it, but Zest stands firm. Her act of bravery ends up attracting the monster's attention, opening a gap. Seizing the opportunity, Basara activates his most powerful technique, Banishing Shift, and delivers the final blow that destroys the creature's core. the monster collapses, defeated. Zolja, watching from afar, is shocked by what has just happened. The plan he had devised has collapsed before his eyes. Meanwhile, Zest, badly wounded, wakes up and realizes that she was saved by the heroes before the fatal blow hit her. In a moment of sincerity, she tells Sheila that she owes her life to Basara, and that it is now up to him to decide what to do with her. But when everyone regains consciousness, they realize that Basara has disappeared. In another part of the ruined mansion, Zolja drags himself away, exhausted and desperate. It is then that Takegawa reappears in front of him, ready to put an end to everything. He mentions that there was someone who very much wanted to see the end of Zolja. The villain laughs, believing he could control Takegawa, but he is surprised to discover that the person he was referring to was Basara. With Zolja defeated and on his knees, he begs for his life. However, Takegawa ignores his pleas. The villain is mercilessly eliminated. Back home, Basara reflects on everything that has happened. He remembers his father's words of reassurance and tries to stay calm, even with so many responsibilities on his back. He sees Yuki talking to Lars Jester and takes the opportunity to advise the demon to change his lifestyle. Yuki warns Basara that many people are still going to come after Mio, and he promises that he will keep an eye out and warn them if anything happens, especially now that he intends to visit Maria and her boss in the demon world. Later, Basara finds Maria sleeping next to her mother, finally at peace. He then goes to Mio's room and brings her a glass of warm milk to help her relax. Seeing her so vulnerable, he realizes that, because of the pact they made, Mio could go mad if she fell into the wrong hands. With that, he thinks he might have to be the first to take the initiative, but he restrains himself. However, Mio approaches him and asks him to kiss her again. Just then, Yuki appears and witnesses the scene, sparking a heated argument between the two girls. Sensing the tension in the air, Basara goes to Maria and asks for her help. Maria, who until then had been feeling guilty and thinking of leaving, is moved to realize that she is still important to the group. In the midst of the confusion, she ends up kissing Basara too, which only increases the atmosphere of rivalry and unrest in the house. With the return to normality, Sheila and Jester return to the demon world accompanied by other demons, and the peaceful routine begins to take hold again. In the underworld, the Demon King is informed of Zolja's death and orders one of his subordinates to investigate. However, upon entering the royal throne, the Demon King finds all the guards fallen, and, in the center of the room, Jin, Basara's father, sitting calmly on the throne. Jin thanks them for taking care of his children and, with a grim smile, promises to return the favor a veiled threat that marks the end of the main season. But before we start the next season, we have a special OVA episode, which features some light comedy and intimate moments between the characters. The OVA begins with Maria cooking in the kitchen, but she soon senses a strange presence upstairs. Upon investigating, she finds Mio dreaming of Basara. Curious, Maria uses a magic camera to spy on the dream, but ends up accidentally waking Mio. In order to keep her asleep, Maria casts a sleep spell, but this causes an even more intense and physical dream. To keep the dream going, Maria magically transforms into Basara and begins to tease her. However, the real Basara appears, interrupting everything and scolding Maria. Back in the kitchen, Maria prepares a special meal and offers it to Basara to try. But when he tastes it, he realizes that it wasn't Maria's dish, but Mio's. This involuntarily activates his battle instincts, causing him to draw his sword by reflex. Yuki appears, trying to calm the situation. Yuki then tries to seduce him by taking off her clothes, only to be interrupted by the arrival of Mio, who, overcome with jealousy, electrocutes both Basara and Maria without mercy. Later, at school, our hero went to the infirmary after injuring himself in P class. There, he was seen by Nurse Hasegawa, who, as always, was kind and a little daring. She asked him to help her with something, and when he bent down, he ended up getting his clothes caught, causing even more discomfort. After school, Hasegawa invites Basara to her house for dinner. There, she surprises him with a table full of delicious food and teasingly asks for a fun hug while he washes his hands, as if that wasn't enough. She also asks him to shower with her scent, ensuring that the girls in the house will notice. Basara accepts, but is soon surprised when the nurse herself enters the bathroom and starts soaping him up. Completely bewildered, he ends up losing control of the situation and faints. When he wakes up, he's lying on her lap, not knowing if what happened was real or just a dream. Feeling confused and ashamed, he decides to get dressed and leave. Meanwhile, in another dimension, Jin Basara's father is fighting an intense battle against the current Demon King, Leonhardt, because he believes him to be behind certain threats to the human world. Leonhardt also realizes Jin's immense power and understands why he is known as the God of Destruction. During the fight, Leonhardt accidentally destroys a castle tower. Jin, realizing that someone has fallen unconscious in the rubble, rescues the person and then leaves, mysterious as ever. Back at the protagonist's house, Mio begins to have frequent and embarrassing dreams about Basara, so she can barely face him at breakfast. The situation becomes even more chaotic when Maria shows up with even more food and, in her usual mischievous way, asks permission to go to the school sports festival, as she is still technically under house arrest. Later, Mio and Yuki are surprised to discover that Basara is part of the organizing committee for the festival, which he explains by saying that he wants to enjoy his school life as an ordinary student. During the organization, he is accompanied by Takabana, a shy and reserved boy who also joined the committee at the request of Heisugawa herself. While walking through the corridors, Basara meets the nurse again, and once again, the atmosphere between them becomes tense and charged with intentions. When Heisugawa says goodbye and goes on his way, Basara senses that he is being watched. Despite the feeling, he decides not to comment and continues walking alongside Takabana, who shares how he joined the festival committee. Basara suspects that his decision was influenced by Heisugawa, given the teacher's engaging charisma. Later, as they enter one of the classrooms, they come across a group of students arguing aggressively. One of the boys, clearly angry, muttering plans to take revenge on the girl he was arguing with. Before the situation gets any worse, Basara intervenes. However, Heisugawa appears just in time, preventing the confrontation from going any further. Despite his apparent calm, Basara realizes that Takabana seems to be using some kind of hypnosis to control the boys, something that makes him even more suspicious. The teacher's enigmatic charm begins to bother Basara's instincts. Meanwhile, Mio and Yuki return home and meet Takagawa on the way. He is visibly irritated, already aware of the girls' true identities, worried about where the conversation is going. They hurry up and return home. Both still remember their earlier conversation with Takagawa about how to keep Basara under control, especially to prevent him from losing control of his own powers. That evening, Basara is returning from the store with some colleagues and teachers when suddenly a magical barrier surrounds the area. Ordinary people at the bus stop start attacking him with spells as if they were possessed, acting like zombies. Confused, he quickly realizes that everyone is being controlled by magic. Luckily for him, Kurumi appears and, with her abilities, neutralizes the attackers without hurting them. After resolving the situation, she approaches Basara and says that she is there to help Yuki. She also asks him if he believes that anyone is suspicious of him, given the strange atmosphere hanging over the school. They return home together, but when they arrive, everything is dark. Upon entering the living room, Basara is startled to see Mio and Yuki dressed as puppies, kneeling provocatively. Maria appears soon after, casting a playful spell that removes Basara's shoes, encouraging the girls to caress his feet as part of a strengthening ritual. The disconcerting scene makes Kurumi furious. She scolds everyone there, especially her sister, and Mio, embarrassed, flees the room. Maria then explains to Kurumi how the master-servant contract works, prompting more questions. Yuki tries to calm her sister down, but Kurumi is still resentful. To resolve the situation, Maria applies a magical baptism to Kurumi, allowing her to feel the effects of the contract, just as Mio and Yuki do. The aim is to make her understand, firsthand, how this bond works. Basara and Yuki help Kurumi deal with the effects of the baptism, after which she falls asleep in her sister's arms. Basara questions Maria about her decision to baptize Kurumi by force. She reveals that she has a sister, and that if she were to be judged by her for a difficult choice, it would hurt her deeply. In the last scene, we see Basara on top of a building, looking out over the city at night. He thinks about who is behind the manipulation of ordinary people, and Heisugawa's name comes to mind. Despite the uncertainty, he makes a firm decision. Regardless of who is behind it, he will fight and protect all the girls around him. The next day, the school festival continues. Mio gets ready excitedly with her friends, and Basara joins Takabana to help organize and distribute the tickets for the event. Despite the temporary calm, the atmosphere of tension still hangs in the air. Something big is coming. They talk about how the Danu family, who were responsible for the mess at school, have apologized. Kirimi arrives, and Basara introduces her to the others. Shortly afterwards, our protagonist leaves and tells Takabana that they'll meet later. He meets up with Yuki and Mio, ready to investigate the possible attacker. They see this incident as an opportunity to identify and control whoever is behind the manipulations. As Maria comments, the culprits must be extremely powerful. After Rika Kajira gives an opening speech, the school games begin. Kirimi summons his spirit from the air to track any suspicious presence and ends up locating Takabana. He realizes that Kirimi is a hero and becomes suspicious of Basara's group. During one of the team competitions, Mio, Yuki, and Basara compete together and win. Heisugawa congratulates them, but Basara remains distant, still suspicious of the intentions behind everything. Kirimi senses Takabana's presence approaching, so Dansu launches a magical attack, creating a whirlpool of earth. Basara reacts quickly, which ends up involving Takabana in the fight. It's at this point that Takabana reveals that he's a hero too, but believes he's being hunted because he's a vampire. Meanwhile, the girls end up crossing the path of Heisugawa, who suddenly loses his magical presence. Basara notices something strange and realizes that they are in the infirmary. He defeats Takabana and rushes there, but is intercepted by Heisugawa, who easily breaks his sword. When Basara tries to apply a magic seal to her, Professor Sakazaki appears and pulls him away from the battle. Sakazaki reveals himself to be an old friend of Basara's father, saying that he has been tasked with protecting him. He also claims that Heisugawa is an incredibly powerful entity, comparable to an S-class demon. Back in the classroom, Basara begins to suspect that Sakazaki is actually the real enemy. After all, his father would never have exposed Mio to someone so dangerous without giving him any warning. Sakazaki then reveals his true divine form and a fierce battle begins. Basara tries his best to hurt him, but the divine being reveals Kirimi as a hostage and threatens to devour her. With no choice, Basara agrees to stop fighting, but the enemy mercilessly rips off one of his arms. As he falls to the ground and is about to be executed, something unexpected happens. Basara, hitting the god with a power that seems out of control. Nevertheless, he tries to put an end to Basara. However, invisible forces' magical chains trap him and prevent him from proceeding. Heisugawa appears and confronts the god called Onus, who in turn calls her Lee. She wastes no time in calling him an idiot for breaking the seal of Brynhildr. The Valkyrie sealed inside Basara, an extremely powerful entity and the reason he lost control. Even with the warning, Onus tries to take advantage of the situation, believing that Heisugawa couldn't unleash her full power. But she wasn't alone. She reveals that she has obtained the support of some gods and that she can now use all her strength to protect Basara. Determined, she faces Onus and reveals the reason behind her protection. Basara is the only living proof that his mother is still alive. That's why she will never allow him to be harmed and will destroy Onus if necessary. With Basara out of control, Heisugawa manages to calm his mind by gently controlling him. She then decides to erase the memories of everyone involved and rewrite them, ensuring that Basara never discovers his true origin, or that he has two mothers. Later, Basara talks to Takabana and explains that he is no longer a hero, and that he will no longer get involved in his affairs. Back home, he reflects on his victory against Onus and feels that, during that fight, someone special was protecting him. Soon after, Maria, Yuki, and Kirimi burst into his room. Maria begins to tease him, which activates Kirimi's curse. Basara consoles her, trying to calm the mood. Just then, a new character appears, Lucia, Maria's sister, who appears at the behest of the moderate faction of the demon world to invite them to visit the demon realm. In the demon realm, Leonhard and his allies discover a hidden ancient machine, a powerful artifact that the council intends to use to exterminate the conservatives. Leonhard, however, is opposed. He wishes to defeat directly, and to this end, Gald promises to lead the frontal assault, while Blaster remains to protect Leonhard and ensure that his plan succeeds. They discuss how to provoke the council into attacking first. Lars, the astute observer, suggests that they steal Mio's power since she will be present in the demon realm during the visit. Meanwhile, Lucia talks to her master, Ramses, and mentions that Klaus and the nobles are gathering followers of the former demon king. Back at the house, Lucia reveals that Ramses is the brother of the former demon king, which makes him Mio's uncle. Faced with this revelation, the group decides to go to the demon kingdom in search of support from the faction led by Ramses. Mio hesitates at first, but ends up accepting the proposal with the encouragement of her friends. She gets in touch with Lucia, and together they embark on this journey into the world of demons. Arriving at the imposing Wild Art Castle, which once belonged to the former demon king and now belongs to Ramses, the group is surprised by the beauty and tranquility of the place. Impressed, Basara asks Lucia to immediately arrange an audience with Ramses. However, they discover that Ramses is absent, and to make matters worse, they are taken to rest in a dirty room with no comfort whatsoever. Zest, now acting as a maid in the castle, joins the group for dinner, and everyone is happy to see her well. Sheila then appears, demonstrating her ability to travel through dimensional tunnels and revealing that she is Lars' personal maid. Amid the laughter, Maria discreetly walks away. Lucia, her older sister, soon finds her and reveals that Ramses has tasked her with punishing her for her behavior towards Zulja. Basara intervenes and uses Sheila's dimensional tunnel to prevent Lucia from punishing Maria, begging her to be spared. He ends up undertaking to carry out the punishment himself, which leads to a rather peculiar and amusing reprimand. In the end, Kurumi, who witnesses the scene, enters the room, but ends up receiving a baptism from Lucia as well. Basara quickly defends her and prevents further punishment, but Lucia insists that he should continue the process himself. This results in another rather curious situation. Later, they are introduced to Lord Klaus, a former demon strategist for the late King Wilbert. He apologizes for the poor room in which he had accommodated them and takes them to more suitable quarters. Klaus discusses with them the current conflict between the Leahart faction and the conservatives loyal to the former king. Many recognize Mio and celebrate her arrival as the rightful heir. As they explore the demonic world, they realize that, although similar to the human world, it is saturated with demonic particles, which halves the hero's powers. While having tea in a cafe, Zest walks away to avoid confusion, but is approached by soldiers who insult her for having been Zulja's servant. Basara intervenes and defends her. When she returns to the group, her sandal heel is broken, and he carries her back to the others. At night, they arrive at the main castle and finally meet Ramses, whose presence impresses everyone. Each girl is given a room. Kurumi remembers the amulet that Lucia gave her to protect Maria, and she shows up to tease her a bit. Meanwhile, Mio is attended to by a maid called Noel, who grew up with her and asks about Lars. Ramses watches the moon, until Basara approaches and asks for a private conversation. He confronts the leader, accusing him of wanting to extract power from Mio, even if it hurts her, and questions his authority to rule. Ramses coldly replies that this is Mio's duty, regardless of the consequences. He mentions an old agreement, but denies that Basara has any right to challenge it. Enraged, Basara almost calls on his sword, but Lucia and Sheila intervene to calm things down. Later, Zest joins the bath with the other girls and Sheila. Basara, of course, ends up involved. Zest, thinking she's a burden, ends up activating the curse, but Basara calms her down once again with affection and understanding. In the meantime, a battle breaks out in the city between the guards, monsters, and Lars puppets. Mio, Noel, and the others watch as Basara faces Gald's brutal power. Remembering Basara's promise to always fight together, Mio decides to help him. He manages to seriously injure Gald, but a mysterious light envelops them, causing massive destruction. Basara falls, seriously injured, next to Mio. Meanwhile, Nembra planned to steal Mio's power. Nembra, in particular, wants to eliminate everyone in order to fulfill the council's wishes. Unable to stand by and watch, Mio joins the fight. Nembra tries to attack her, but an energy beam hits them and causes great damage. Ramses, realizing that Nembra is getting too strong, uses a gravitational spell to protect Mio and intervenes directly. The battle ends with the heroes safe. For now. Finally, we see Mio saying goodbye to Klaus, thanking him for all his hospitality and kindness, but making it clear that she prefers to continue living as a human, rather than inherit her father's throne in the demon world. Meanwhile, the city that had been destroyed has now been completely rebuilt. Ramses talks to Lucia and informs her that the mission to remove Mio's powers has been suspended due to recent changes in circumstances. It is at this point that the group, ready to leave the kingdom, is surprised by the unexpected appearance of Jin, Basara's father. On the other side, Galb tells Leonhard that he has detected dimensional distortions caused by Basara's power. He also mentions that he sensed the presence of Brynhildr, the legendary sword, whose power generated a supersonic whirlwind that defeated Galb. Leonhard then orders Galb to rest for the time being. But as he leaves, Leonhard admits that he now understands how powerful the force of those on Basara's side is, and how difficult it will be to defeat them. Suddenly, Lyra, Leonhard's sister, appears. Sensing the tension, she suggests they do what they always do that night. We then see the two of them in the bath, and even in a relaxed mood, Lyra ends up releasing so much energy that she destroys a large part of the road exactly where Lars was standing. When he feels Lyra's power, he is completely terrified. Later, Leonhard announces an official 7-on-7 battle. The winning team will decide the fate of the entire demon world. Faced with this news, Ramses tells the Jinn there is no way he can refuse this challenge, even if it all seems like a trap by the council. Jin warns him that the price could be millions of lives. They talk about how the council chose Leonhard because they thought he would be easily manipulated. But the Jinn reveals something worrying. Despite being present at the scene of the crime, he never met Zafia. At this point, Sheila appears and confirms that Zafia is certainly not in the demon world. The focus must now be on how to win the tournament. Meanwhile, the group goes about their routine. During his bath, Basara manages to remove the curse from Mio. Meanwhile, Jin tells them that he will be responsible for training the group so that they can achieve victory in the tournament. The next day, training begins. Basara struggles as he tries to attack his own father. Even with Jin pushing the pace, Jin throws him against a rock and warns him that he can rest for now, but that it's only the beginning. While he rests, Jin takes the opportunity to explain to Basara how Leonhard fights and what his abilities are. Despite everything, he reassures him. If Basara uses his intelligence and unleashes his true strength at the right time, he can win. But Jin doesn't let up. Jin intensifies his attacks and unleashes his full power, causing violent winds to sweep everything around him. He shouts at Basara not to back down if he wants to protect the people who are important to him. He has to fight with everything. Meanwhile, the girls train with Sheila. Mio wants to learn how to better control the power she inherited from Wilbert, her father. Sheila explains that before she can do that, she needs to understand her own strength. As part of the training, she activates the curse on all the girls, forcing them to deal with the side effects. After eating some special sweets, they manage to calm down. Sheila explains that she has developed a pill that can suppress the effects of the curse, but warns, the closer Basara is to them emotionally, the harder it will be to find him when needed. Suddenly, everything starts to shake. A gigantic force comes from the Andhra forest. Kirumi quickly transports the group there, where they find Basara seriously injured after his brutal training session with Jin. In the face of the destruction caused, Yuki recalls the tragic events in his village. Later, Jin approaches his son and faces him. He says that he won't give all his power away, unless Basara really understands what it means to fight with everything, even at the cost of his own life. He asks how Basara felt at that moment, thinking he might die. Basara remembers that his only concern was to protect the girls. Jin then instructs him to keep that feeling alive, recover it, and release all his accumulated energy in a charged attack just as he did in the village. This makes Basara panic for a moment, but his father calms him down and goes on to explain about his true power, mentioning 3 limiting factors. The first is conscious, hatred of virtue. To defeat Leonhard, Basara needs to release at least 2 of these limiting factors. Jin also mentions that even though they want to protect Mio, if they win, she will be forced to become queen, and if they lose, they will all lose their powers. There is still a third option, and Jin promises that he will support him if that happens. Sitting next to Basara, Jin finally tells him about his 2 mothers, revealing a truth he's been holding back for a long time. Meanwhile, Yuki thinks about visiting Basara, but hesitates. Our protagonist is on the roof of the castle, reflecting on his father's words about limiters. Suddenly, he remembers the girls, summons his sword and unleashes a powerful attack. so intense that Yuki can feel its energy from a distance. The next day, Basara seeks out Sheila and asks for her help. Meanwhile, the group prepares for battle. Leonhard awaits them on his throne. When they arrive, Leonhard recognizes the group immediately. Another demon appears. It's Belfegor, a member of the council and former ally of Zalja, who claims control of the arena. Leonhard accepts his presence. Outside, Basara realizes that the council and the king clearly don't get along, as his father had said. On the way, he meets Lars, who warns him not to go too hard on his opponents the next day. Back in his room, Basara reveals to the girls that his faction believes in them. He reinforces that he will need to release 2 of his limiters during the fight. Maria looks worried, but tries to comfort the others. The girls, in response, ask him to get stronger for all of them. Meanwhile, Belfegor grows stronger with the help of his servants, determined to win the tournament and obtain millions in magical power. The girls continue to train with Basara, honing their physical and magical skills for the fight. The next day, Ramses brings Lucia and Noel to Leonhard's castle. The girls rest, but Mio notices that Basara quietly leaves the room. Later, Basara meets Takagawa in a tavern and asks him for a favor to buy a specific perfume. At the same time, he explains part of his plan to Lars. During the night, Yuki has a nightmare in which all her friends have disappeared and Basara appears with a maniacal look on his face, ready to take his own life. She wakes up frightened. Takagawa, disguised in his Lars mask, buys the requested perfume and wonders what Basara's plan is. That same evening, Mio finds Basara on the phone and asks him if he's talking to Jin. He replies that everyone needs to stay calm. She hugs him, and he asks her to trust him, no matter what. This leads to an intimate moment between the two, where Mio begs him to remain her master emotionally and physically. They share an intense and passionate moment, further sealing the bond of submission between them. The next day, the tournament finally begins. Leonhard realizes that the event is being used as an excuse by the council to launch an offensive. Mio steps forward and declares that she will fight not as Wilbert's daughter, but as herself. And with that, she goes into battle. Before the fight, Leonhard receives a call from Madinus, who mentions that Belfegor has been missing since the previous night. He also comments that something strange is happening to another member of the council. They begin to suspect that the council itself is up to something behind the scenes. The battle then really begins. Mio confronts Luca, who summons a heroic spirit as his ally. Although Mio takes a direct hit, Luca's heroic spirit regenerates and continues fighting. Still, she remains calm. She remembers Basara leaving before the battle, saying that he had something important to do, but that he would be back in time. When the heroic spirit tries to strike the final blow, Mio activates her true power and defeats him with a single devastating attack, firmly winning the fight. After her victory, Maria proudly congratulates Mio. Then it's Maria's turn to enter the arena. Outside, Ramses and his allies watch intently. Lucia hopes that Maria will do her best, even though she feels worried. Maria enters the arena to face Lars. Noel, watching everything, knocks over his cup of tea as he realizes how serious the confrontation is. Before the fight begins, Maria asks why Lars betrayed her, but he refuses to answer and the fight begins. At first, Lars has the upper hand and dominates Maria. However, Maria decides to unleash her full power, assumes her adult form and turns the tables, pressuring Lars with heavy and impressive attacks. Noel watches and remembers the times when Lars was just a boy, someone who always protected others and helped rebuild the orphanage after its destruction. Lars, realizing that Maria has not yet fully mastered her new form, manages to counterattack and defeat her. The audience demands that Lars eliminate Maria, but he explodes with rage, shouting that no one decides for him who should or shouldn't be eliminated. He then leaves the arena, refusing to obey the council's orders. Noel smiles discreetly, recognizing that Lars was still the same boy as before, just hiding under a tough facade. Outside, Yuki and Kirimi watch the scene in silence. Before her own fight, Kirimi turns to her sister and says that now she's going to do what she wants because everyone believes in her. Yuki hugs her, touched. At the same time, Basara finally arrives in front of the gate of a large palace, sword in hand. Kirimi returns to the arena and is assigned to face Viscount Admirath, a direct servant of Lord Mardona's. Before the fight, he hands her a mysterious button and says that Basara's fate will depend on her decision. Meanwhile, Maria is taken seriously injured to the infirmary, where Mio and Yuki take turns looking after her. Among Leohardt's allies, some begin to suspect Admirath's intentions. Balfleer comments that he will investigate the council's plans, as it is not yet time to attack. Admirath summons his demonic steed and brutally defeats Kirimi. Just as he is about to strike her again, Zest intervenes and stops the attack. Because of this interference, the council appears on the big screen and declares that Kirimi is defeated, and that Zest has lost due to outside intervention. Tension rises. The group realizes that if they lose another fight, everything will be over. Kirimi, unconscious, is rushed by Maria to Yuki. There, they discover the button that Admirath gave the girl and soon realize that it was something dangerous. Yuki, angry and determined, decides to go into battle herself. Meanwhile, Admirath is praised by the council members, but his expression changes when he senses a presence nearby. He attacks instinctively, but misses his target. In fact, Balfleer was spying on the council and had overheard secret plans, which makes it clear that there is treachery afoot. The next fight begins with Yuki facing Valda, Valga's younger brother, a demon she had defeated in the past. Valda tries to intimidate her, but Yuki, without hesitation, eliminates him with a single blow. After her victory, many believe that it will be Lucia's turn to take the field. However, Mio firmly states that Basara will still return. Meanwhile, Balfleer finds the council's secret facilities and begins to discover their true intentions. Leohardt, meanwhile, talks to Lars about Balfleer's sudden disappearance. Despite trusting his ally, Leohardt begins to suspect that the council is preparing a trap behind the scenes. During the battle, Leohardt ends up replacing Balfleer as a fighter, and Rukia appears to inform him that Ramses will fight in Basara's place. Suddenly, the battlefield is transformed into the Demon King Samdu's arena, surrounded by rivers of incandescent lava. Rukia explains to the girls that only someone with royal blood can fight in that environment, making Ramses the only one qualified. Meanwhile, Basara, still badly wounded in the forest, forces his body to move and sets off for the battlefield. Leohardt begins to believe that defeating Ramses there will be the definitive proof that Wilbert's lineage is finished. However, before the fight begins, Basara appears in front of everyone, shocking the audience and the council itself. They suspect that he has broken through the field barrier using his annihilation technique. The fight begins. From afar, Jin, now resting in Ramses' castle, is scolded by one of his servants for not watching the battle. He simply replies, looking thoughtful, that Basara only has a 20% chance of winning. The girls watch the fight anxiously. Zest explains that Basara can't use his berserker transformation, as it would leave him vulnerable for a few seconds, and those seconds could be fatal. Even so, Mio firmly believes that her beloved will be able to win. Basara then uses the perfume Takagawa bought for him, activating a technique that creates multiple illusions of himself. Leohardt, however, destroys the illusions one by one, easily resisting the attacks. The confrontation continues fiercely. The girls begin to notice Basara's injuries increasing. Finally, Leohardt launches him into the air, and he crashes into the edge of the arena, plummeting into the lava. At this critical moment, Basara remembers the pill Sheila gave him, a pill capable of releasing the power dormant in his blood, inherited from his mother. Without hesitation, to protect the girls, he swallows the pill and plunges into the sea of lava. Leohardt believes he has won, until an explosion of demonic energy erupts from the lava. Basara emerges, covered in a sinister and choleric aura, displaying the power worthy of a true demon king. He defeats Leohardt with overwhelming force, but pays a high price. His body begins to burn from the inside out, unable to contain such energy. The girls realize what is happening. If he continues, he will end up destroying himself. But Basara, overwhelmed by the power, doesn't stop. He continues to attack Leohardt like a madman, completely out of his mind. That's when Mio rushes out to meet him. Just as Basara is about to finish Leohardt off with a deadly blow, Mio intervenes and attacks him directly. Suddenly, Mio wakes up. He's in his house, but something is wrong. Reality begins to distort, to fall apart. He shows up at school, but the world is shattered. Spirits attack Mio, until Maria's voice echoes in his mind. helping him to realize that it's all just inside his head. Mio holds out her hand, and Basara takes it. Inside her mind, Mio confronts Zalja, who tries to steal her power. Sensing Basara's presence, she defeats Zalja and finds the hero's full form. Even so, he is still out of control. He's about to crush Mio with an explosion, but stops himself in time. He destroys his armor and regains consciousness. Mio hugs him, apologizing for his own weakness. Basara loses control once again and tears her clothes with his energy. But Mio allows him to, on the condition that he returns to her. This finally calms him down. Back in the royal arena, Basara, now lucid, apologizes to the demon princess. She smiles, reminding him that she trusted him from the start. The two walk together to Leahart, and Basara holds out his hand. The Demon King accepts the handshake as a sign of respect and closure. But the peace is short-lived. High in the sky, the council executes its Plan B. Belfegor activates the final ritual, summoning the legendary god of heroes, Chaos, a colossal entity made of hellfire, descending from the heavens like the end of the world itself. The council believes that with Chaos on the field, the kingdom will finally belong to them. The creature begins to destroy the entire arena with ease. One of the counselors expresses concern for Ramses and the other obstacles, but is soon reminded that Chaos can control heroic spirits and crush any resistance. Suddenly, a guard rushes in. Chaos isn't just destroying the battlefield, he's summoning even more heroic spirits and causing an unprecedented dimensional crisis. If this continues, the entire demon world will be reduced to ashes. Even in the face of this absolute chaos, the council remains unmoved. Impressed by the power of their living weapon, they begin to plan a total reconstruction of the demon world, followed by a new war against the gods. Meanwhile, the soldiers discover that Viscount Admirath has also disappeared. He's probably gone to take care of some personal business. In the midst of the hell that the battlefield has become, Mio, Basara, and Leahart are still standing. And thanks to the power of the true heroes they carry in their hearts, they haven't given up yet. The committee concludes that the combatants are seriously wounded and no longer able to continue fighting. Just then, outside, the sound of destruction intensifies. The girls hear everything and Rukia decides to check on Ramses' whereabouts. However, Viscount Admirath appears before them and, with a sadistic smile, says that there is no need to worry everyone there will be devoured. Chaos then launches a colossal attack. A blast of incandescent energy sweeps through everything in its path, devastating structures, fields, and even the surrounding space. In the final episode, we see Leahart and the others managing to hide. While Chaos continues to ravage everything around with his uncontrollable fury, Mio tries to convince the others that it is possible to break down barriers and join forces, but Leahart explains that, at that moment, everyone must face their own battle alone. Meanwhile, the girls prepare to face Admirath, but realize that their energy is fading. Nevertheless, Yuki steps forward and decides to fight. In another part of the field, Zester faces heroic spirits with difficulty, buying time. In the center of the battlefield, Basara, Mio, and Leahart fight with all their might against Chaos. Just as Chaos seems about to defeat them, Ramses appears with a powerful surprise attack. Admirath, for his part, takes advantage of the girl's weakness and prepares to strike Kurumi, but Maria intervenes explosively. She rips off one of her enemy's arms, preventing him from using his spear. Kurumi seizes the moment, grabs the other arm, and throws Admirath out of the building. Without wasting any time, Maria jumps after him and starts brutally beating him into unconsciousness. Elsewhere, we see Noel trying to protect a helpless little girl, but a heroic spirit appears to attack her. It is then that Takagawa appears and destroys the enemy with a single blow, saving them both. Back on the main field, Ramses tries to contain Chaos, while Basara formulates a desperate plan to create a black hole, similar to the one Mio generated when she lost control of her powers. He explains the strategy to Mio and once again asks her to trust him. The two set off together to confront Chaos. Leahart accompanies them and tries to contain the Hellfire creature. Mio activates her maximum power and a black hole begins to form, sucking in the chaos around her. Basara, meanwhile, takes more pills to unleash his hidden potential. With the help of Mio, who channels his demonic energy, he reaches the peak of a true hero's power. With one devastating blow, Basara pushes Chaos straight into the center of the black hole. The creature screams and resists, but is finally swallowed up. The demonic world finally begins to stabilize. Exhausted and wounded, Mio faints. The souls that were under chaos control are freed. Basara returns to his normal state and rushes over to Mio to make sure she's okay. Meanwhile, the council members, in disbelief at Chaos' defeat, consider putting their final plan into practice, the total destruction of the demon world. But before they can act, Lyra appears and defeats them single-handedly. Lyra senses the presence of Jin, Basara's father, and realizes that he also has the goal of eliminating the council elders. She recognizes the aura of the ancient dragon in Jin and understands, in that instant, how Basara inherited such a powerful technique. Basara appears. For a brief moment, Lyra considers fighting Basara, but gives up when she discovers that he is a friend of Lars and is trying to become Leohardt's ally. She praises him for his victory and leaves soon after. Later, Belphegor's body is found in the palace. Lyra soon realizes that it was Basara who defeated him, although she doesn't understand why he would have risked everything to face Leohardt. After the victory, Jin comments to Ramses that the young protagonists have changed the course of history and that now the demon world can live in peace, without Mio having to carry the burden of his inheritance. Lyra, realizing her error of judgment, tries to hide her feelings from her brother, Leohardt. Meanwhile, Takagawa remembers the moment he found Basara wounded in the forest and rescued him without anyone noticing. In the end, the heroes return to the human world. That same night, Basara has a nightmare about Mio, afraid of losing her forever. But when he wakes up, Mio is standing next to him with a mischievous smile on her face and asks if he wants to play with her. The other girls interrupt Basara and want to be with him too, which leads to a hilarious argument between them, but in the end, reinforces the mood of peace restored in the world. A light and amusing ending. But the story isn't over yet. There are still 2 OVAs to come, so keep up. In the second OVA, we see Maria waking Basara up in his room. He notices that she has sneaked in and is annoyed by the little succubus' mischievous behavior. Later, Basara goes to Mio's room to wake her up and finds her nightgown open, the result of another of Maria's pranks. When he tries to fix the situation, Yuki appears and also seeks attention. Mio wakes up, notices her clothes open, gets furious and starts scolding everyone. Mio remembers Yuki's taunts and gets even angrier when she sees Maria tearing her uniform. To compete, Yuki also cuts up her own uniform. During physical education class, Yuki and Basara go to fetch the ball and end up getting into several embarrassing situations while he tries to protect her. Mio arrives just in time to interrupt, and a small argument breaks out between the two. Later, Basara wakes up in the infirmary, where Heisugawa reassures him that the girls are fine. Of course, she also takes advantage of the situation to try to seduce him, making him visibly nervous. That night, Maria tells Basara that the next day is Mio's birthday, and proposes a surprise. They start brainstorming ideas, until Yuki joins them and assures them that any gift from him would be special. After everyone has gone to sleep, Basara decides to visit Mio's room. Suddenly, the door closes on its own and the demon princess starts acting strangely seductive. He soon realizes that it's all just an illusion, another one of Maria's spells. The little succubus has created a magical barrier that generates an alternative scene, claiming that it won't affect the real world. Inside the fantasy, Maria is at a festival with Yuki. They have fun in various typical festival situations, until they end up hugging during a fireworks display. However, the illusion begins to fail, and Maria realizes that it could be dangerous to keep it up for too long. Meanwhile, in the real world, everyone involved begins to kiss and play under the effect of the magic. When the spell ends, everyone returns to normal. Maria explains the time limit of her illusory magic, and ends up being affectionately reprimanded by everyone for yet another of her pranks. Back at the house, Maria reveals that it's not actually Mio's birthday. Maria admits that she was confused by the time difference between the human world and the demonic world. Mio becomes even more frustrated, and Maria already starts planning new surprises for the correct date. We return to the scene where Mio is taking a bath and, by accident, Basara and Maria end up being sprayed with a magical acid that causes the girls to lose control. After the chaos, they scold Maria severely and tie her up to make sure she never tries anything like that again, even though, deep down, Maria understood that Mio only wanted that moment with her husband. During the meal, everyone compliments Zest's breakfast, including Basara. This makes Mio jealous, and she declares that, from the next day on, she will be the one doing the cooking. Maria suggests that they all take turns in the kitchen, an idea that ends up being accepted by everyone. Suddenly, an advertisement appears for a water park open to the public, and Maria immediately encourages everyone to take a trip there even though it's winter. Basara accepts the idea, and of course all the girls want to go too. What they don't know is that everything is being watched by a bird from the Demon Kingdom. At the pool, the girls appear wearing bathing suits, attracting all eyes, until Basara runs into Takabana and Kajira, who were also there, and bumps into Takegawa. He reveals that he has now been appointed supervisor of Hell and that he needs to stay where he is. The group enjoys the day with lots of fun, while Maria records everything in photos until she is interrupted. Suddenly, the bells of a nearby church ring, and upon hearing the sound, Mio and Basara realize that a wedding is taking place. This starts a conversation about when they themselves will get married. However, they end up meeting Heisugawa, who explains that he is only there to investigate where the students spend their free time. Some young people push the couple forward, and Heisugawa takes the opportunity to remind Basara of their promise to travel together. After she leaves, Mio, overcome with jealousy, activates the curse again. When Maria is finally released, she sees Basara sneaking Mio away. They kiss and walk together to the hot springs, where they begin to play intimately. Meanwhile, the other girls gather in Yuki's room. Maria finds an old photo showing Yuki, Kurumi, and Basara as children before the tragic incident, leaving Mio deep in thought. Yuki, meanwhile, takes a bath and reflects on what happened when Basara was exiled. She blames herself for not having protected him, or even followed him, and since she didn't say anything at the time, she feels she has lost the right to be by his side. But Mio appears, interrupts her thoughts, and asks her how she really feels. Mio recognizes everything Yuki has done so far and says that now she wants to help her too, and that together, they can protect Basara and share the burden. Overcome with emotion, Yuki realizes that Mio is hugging her and starts to dry her off with a towel. She explains that she's doing this because she wanted to talk without being interrupted, especially because of Maria. That night, Basara falls asleep with his head in Heisugawa's lap. She then reveals that she is going to grant him a future power. Her demonic wings appear, and through a kiss, she transfers her magic to Basara. The next morning, he wakes up and sees Heisugawa getting ready. When he returns to the city, he remembers her advice. He begins to think that perhaps everything could have been avoided if he had never returned to Kuro village. But as he remembers his childhood, he realizes that what he was actually afraid of was facing that past. Our hero then meets Takegawa, who says that the time has come to act. Soon after, the two are seen eating together, discussing the next steps regarding Kuro village. Takegawa reveals that he is worried about Basara's attitude towards the faction and fears that he will make a mistake that could jeopardize everything. He makes it clear that he is not Basara's friend, but rather the one in charge of keeping an eye on him, and that, if necessary, he would destroy everything to protect Mio. Meanwhile, the girls are busy preparing lots of food for Basara. Zest notices that he's taking his time, and Kurumi comments that they're like a group of wives waiting for their husbands to come home. This prompts Maria to excitedly suggest that they should all marry him at once. Soon afterwards, Basara and Takegawa arrive at an abandoned park, where a fight breaks out. You can see that Basara is fighting to protect his future alongside the girls. Although Takegawa has the upper hand at first, Basara manages to dodge his attacks. In an attempt to destabilize him, Takegawa uses a technique and summons a clone of Basara, which prevents the real Basara from activating his banishment transformation. The clone seems to have the upper hand in the confrontation. Just as he is about to defeat Basara, he remembers his memories with Mio. Suddenly, a wave of energy awakens inside him, and he regains his strength and determination. With this new impetus, Basara defeats the clone and points his sword directly at Takegawa, unleashing a blast of power. The scene returns to reality, with Takegawa recognizing that he can't beat him or stop him. He then admits that he will allow Basara to do whatever he wants, as long as he keeps his willpower strong. Upon returning home, our hero is surprised to find the girls dressed as brides. All Maria's idea, of course. They explain that it was a symbolic ritual to strengthen family ties and trust as allies. Mio starts fighting with Basara, saying that he always risks everything for her and questions whether she really has the right to fight alongside him. This activates his curse. Basara then reflects that perhaps the village of heroes sees him as a threat and that it would be best for him to go it alone. But Yuki also begins to blame him, activating her own curse, followed by Zest and Kirimi. They all declare that they want to be with him and fight by his side. Touched by the girl's determination, Basara accepts and says they can accompany him. One by one, he kisses each one, affirming that they are now all part of the same bond, as if they were his wives. With Maria's help, the bonds between them intensify. But now, he also needed to calm each of their hearts. Afterwards, all the girls appear relaxed and happy. Basara apologizes to Mio, reaffirming that he sees them all as his real family. Everyone was ready to leave. Mio had prepared plenty of food for the trip, but of course, everyone started eating right there, before it was time. Finally, Basara stands up and declares, "It's time to go." And so they set off together. End of the package. See you next time.